We are just over a week away from Election Day, and the race for the White House is entering the final stretch. I spoke with financial expert Mike Kojonen from Principal Preservation Services about each candidate's economic policies and what that could mean for your wallet. All right, Mike, we'll start with our first question. What do we know about when elections come up and the economy and how that kind of comes together?
Yeah, everybody wants to know what's going to happen, who's going to win. We can't predict any of that, the information. But we can tell you is what history has told us about the market. And the first term of a president, or the first half of the term, I should say, is not typically as good for the market as it was in the second half of the president's term. So we do know that historically. What I will say is past performances don't predict future results, is my quick disclaimer. And with that, but a lot of people have asked us who's going to be better for the economy, whether it's going to be a Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate overall for the economy. We could show you history shows that Democrats have outperformed the Republicans in the market by a couple points. All with that said is you can't be focusing on that. You can't make your investment selections and objectives based off of who's going to be in the president's house.
Just like healthcare, national security, of course, the economy is always one of the bigger topics when the presidential debate happens. It's what President Trump and his opponent, Joe Biden, sparred over a little bit. What are some of those central issues that they're kind of always debating about when it comes to their policies for the economy going forward?
Yeah, first let's start with taxes is a big one. Obviously, we know Trump has that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed here a few years ago that puts a little bit more money in our pocket. But he talks about the future called a Made in America tax credit for those businesses in the U.S. Biden also wants to raise taxes for those who make over $400,000 a year to fund his initiatives. Nobody really has a definitive plan. They haven't laid out the whole plan, but they're talking about what they want to do. But also Biden wants to raise capital gains taxes and eliminate that step up in basis when you're inheriting somebody's home. So that's the taxes is a big issue there.
Can't talk about the economy without talking about how the pandemic has impacted it, but also how our lawmakers in Congress are trying to assist Americans, whether it be with coronavirus relief packages. We've already had one earlier in the summer. We know there's one being discussed right now, but we know both sides are still kind of sparring over how to exactly help Americans.
Yeah, it's frustrating. We haven't been able to get that worked out, those details worked out, anybody coming to agreement on that. And I know even for small businesses who took that PPP loan, everything's kind of upheld until they come up with what's going to happen. But we do look at it as a relief. I know President Trump has have a couple executive orders to suspend federal student loan payments in the meantime to free up that. He's also given the states an extra $300 a week, for the unemployed workers. But Biden wants to actually dedicate $2 trillion as his initiative, $2 trillion in January, based off of if we can contain this coronavirus to help boost the economy. So there's not a lot of great details of what they're going to do. Again, with these are just numbers.
It seems like the words these candidates can say, especially the president right now, can have huge swings on the economy, whether it be the stock market or some of those other things we've discussed. So what should people be doing with their money in these last 9 to 10 days before the election?
Yeah, first of all, is stay calm. It's hard to, you have to get your emotions out of it. We can't control who's going to be the next president of the United States this next term or not. So you have to just be comfortable with your plan. And that's the key is, we can't plan for the president. We can plan for your own future. And I think you need to have a comfortable plan, whether the one president's in or the other president's in, a candidate in, I should say. They're not presidents yet, but one candidate is the president or not. Whether the market's going to go up or the market's going to go down. You have to be comfortable with that plan you're on. The problem is most Americans aren't planning very well already as it is. And we've seen a lot of Americans cut back on their contributions during this pandemic. 6-7 months ago, 30% of Americans have cut back. And actually just the opposite, you should be contributing more and not cutting back.
So what are some other things people can maybe do to prepare in these days ahead before the election and then, in the immediate months that follow as there's maybe a transition of power?
Yeah, don't make any rash decisions, but I do recommend getting together with your financial professional and make sure that you're sitting well with your plan. And what's your retirement date? Are you still on pace to retire? I think that's the important part. We've had many meetings, I should say, in the last few months, more than normal, I should say, with people want to make sure that their plan is in place no matter what's going to happen in this next election. I can't stress that enough, because most people don't have a plan. They have a pile of investments with no plan. The key is you got to get that plan in place. And it's just because you have IRAs and Roths and non-qualified accounts and checking and savings and contributions going in, you need to put together some sort of plan for retirement, and not just follow whatever whims, ups and downs with the market.